Good afternoon, everybody. This is Adrienne Montgomery with ERP Bar. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. We're going to be talking about Acumatica and Procure-to-Pay, Pick, Pack, and Ship. I'm so pleased to be joined by AvidXchange and Starship. And we have Elaine Verna, Senior Alliance Manager over at AvidXchange. She's going to be demonstrating the Avid solution. And Matt St. John, he's the Senior Sales Executive over at Starship. Thank you, you two, for being with us today and talking about your two integrated solutions with Acumatica. A little bit about the companies before we get started. AvidXchange is a leading provider of AP automation software and payment solutions for middle market businesses and suppliers. So it's a perfect fit with Acumatica. It's a software as a service, and it's a platform that digitizes and automates AP workflows, and they have over 7,000 businesses running it, and they have processed more than 700,000 supplier customers of its buyers over the last 5 years. So very established company. A little bit about Starship. Starship was founded in 1987, and they provide a multi-carrier shipping software that connects your warehouse to the front office. And they have very strong partnerships with FedEx, USPS, UPS, OnTrack, very well-known parcel deliverers, and LTL carriers, DHL, Holland, UPS, YRC, Old Dominion, and Pitt, Ohio. They also have a very strong integration with Acumatica, but it's a mature product, and it's been offered over a very long period of time with Dynamics GP, Dynamics Now 365 Business Central, Sage 100, Sage 300, QuickBooks, SAP Business One, and Epicor. They also have integrations with Amazon, eBay, Magento, Shopify, and WooCommerce. So we're going to kick it off today with AvidXchange. It's going to talk about procurement automation in Acumatica. And then once Elaine is done, we're going to talk about Starship, integrated shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it all over to Elaine, who is going to talk about procurement automation. Thank you, Elaine.
So we're not sharing video because it degrades the quality of the presentation. But that's what I look like. But actually, with COVID, I now have longer hair. And had I known that my face wasn't going to be shown, I might have put a picture of somebody else up there. But again, I'm with Avid 6 years, Senior Alliance Manager. What that means here at Avid is I work with the Acumatica ecosystem, which includes corporate Acumatica, and then all of the value-added resellers that sell Acumatica. So just a little bit about Avid. I'm not going to go through all these numbers. And you'll see that it says we have 7,000 customers there, but we have 825 suppliers. That number just, it goes up and over time, and so we just have, those things are a little out of sync. But one of the things I just wanted to share with the group is that Avid has been doing this. We've been in the B2B payment for a very long time. We're one of the folks who probably one of the early entrants into this. And so we know a lot about it. We have a good staff. We are scaled already. So some of our other, the newer entrants, they're still scaling and going through some of those growing pains. Avid has, we've already scaled and prepared to take on customers and, of any size. And we have, again, ready to support you. The other thing is from a trust perspective, we did go public in October, so there's some transparency there. And again, if you look at those numbers, 180 billion, it's a lot that we are handling today. And so we just want you to have, what I want to leave with this slide is just have confidence that Avid is experienced and can do this pretty well. So one of the things that's leading the AP automation now, why people are doing this now, is there's some things that have happened in the environment and in the markets that are really accelerating what middle market companies, what they want to automate. So, part of this digital transformation and all is trying to automate as much as you can of your back office. But what I wanted to talk about here is what are some of those things that are happening. Some of them may go away at some point, but others are, I think, here to stay. And the sort of major events, one is business continuity. That is the need for business continuity. COVID and that crisis and that event clearly brought out the need for be able to keep your business going. Your back office has to keep going, and if people can't be in the office, then you need to provide them with the tools to do that. And whether that's payroll or accounts receivable or shipping or AP, that's really driving the need for automation now. And I think, unfortunately, the events just seem to keep happening and having an impact on people's ability to do business, whether it's the supply chain, unfortunately, what's happening in the Ukraine, that's also having, everybody sees the risk if they're not able to continue to keep their business going, especially the back office. The other thing is fraud. So you just hear about it all the time, and the hackers and all those people, they're just getting smarter and smarter, and they have technology. So one of the things that is driving the need for automation, and particularly in the AP area, because there's a lot of paper in that area, is that those paper puts you at risk, particularly checks. So if you've got paper checks, especially if you have pre-printed stock, it's one of the easiest ways for somebody to steal from you. It has important information on it. It's got your bank account, it's got your bank that you're working with. So it's really getting rid of checks is especially important, because it'll really help to reduce fraud. The other two areas I think are maybe connected, but so the other is that the number of people in the workforce today, as compared to 10, 15 years ago, that are already familiar with tech. They're already familiar with tech. And so they expect that tech to be available to them in their jobs. They're using it at home. They're using it to pay their own bills. And really it's an expectation, as well as they're already familiar, and so the learning curve of them taking on new tools is much shorter. They all sort of work the same, and so similar motifs, and so they can they get to proficiency much faster. So you have a lower cost of ownership. And then the millennial effect, really that what we're talking about there is that the millennials, the older end of the millennials, I have two of them, most of my two daughters, they are now taking over leadership roles. And because they grew up with tech, they grew up with, not doing anything with paper, that is now something that they are pushing for in their own organizations and having those leadership roles. So the point I wanted to make here is that this need for automation, it's not just get rid of the paper, it's also these other tailwinds that are driving the market that aren't going to go away, So I want to just take a deeper dive into where the pain points are for AP in the payment space, the accounts payable. Again, we talked about fraud risk, checks. Also, if you have manual processes, there's just all sorts of ways that you can have gaps in the process. You're gonna have something go wrong because manual processes are done by people, and people make mistakes. And when you fix a manual process that uses people, you fix it for that particular group of people, but you didn't fix it going forward like a piece of software. So there's definitely higher risk with manual processes. Those manual processes also cumbersome. So you have, again, these people who are working for you now who have the ability, the intellectual ability, the education to do higher level tasks, and they're not going to want to be doing a lot of manual tasks. It's just sort of the way it is. And with the market today for talent, that becomes more important. There's also lack of visibility, and I think probably if you're in AP, you've experienced this. You want to close the books, and you got to go see if you got all of the invoices that were outstanding. Where are they? Are they sitting on someone's desk? You're running around trying to find them and get them approved, or you're running around looking for somebody to sign a check because it's the end of it's the day you're going to pay your bill. So you don't know what's out there, and so you can't really manage the finance process. And again, manual processes, they're going to be inaccurate and they're very error prone. I think I've made that point. So the one thing here that I wanted to point out is, and again, I've been in the invoice automation space for probably almost 20 years. And 20 years ago, when we talked about the people in AP could do value, you're freeing them up to do higher value tasks. I will say there was always a little bit of, or oftentimes there would be a little bit of, well, what else can they do? But today, again, because of the folks that, the talent and the education that folks have in the AP world, they're capable. And these are some of the things that they could be doing if they're not doing manual work and trying to fix problems because of those manual processes. So one of them is they can work with your suppliers. They can build supplier relationships, especially if you're like a manufacturer right now. There are certain suppliers that are really key to you and others maybe less so. And with the supply chain issues, you need to make sure you have what you need to make your product. So you may want to improve the relationship with some of those key suppliers, and these folks would be able to do that so that you can still get the stuff that you need, the parts that you need to make what you're going to make. In addition, they can prepare quarterly statements, they can close the books, it just goes easier because, again, they have more time to do that. They can also enhance your internal processes, they can implement best practices, they can take a look at how you're spending your money. Are there opportunities for to optimize your spend because they have time and data now to analyze that information? Or again, they can be doing things like working on your budget, making sure that where it's not aligned, maybe you're preparing for next year. So there's other really truly valuable things that they could be doing. And again, I think in today's world, they really can do this. Again, they want to, they're educated to do it, and they're capable. So one of the things that at Added, we see the supplier and the buyer as our customers because we have a network. And so again, supplier relationships we feel are even stronger. They are more important today given that the supply chain issues, and particularly for distribution and manufacturing. And so what Avid, by viewing your supplier as one of our customers, we have services available to them that none of the other folks in our space have it to the extent that we do. So we have a team of people that are servicing your suppliers. So when your supplier has a question like, where's my payment? Or if your supplier is going to change their banking information, something like that, they have a team of people that they can reach out to. We have a chat. We have a couple different ways they can do that. And so we're there. Our team is there to service your suppliers, very similar to our customer care team that is there for our buyer customers. In addition, we are asking your suppliers, how would they like to get paid? We can offer them up to 3 payment methods, and I can talk about them later, but 2 of them, they get paid very quickly, and the remittance information is easier for them to use to do their reconciliation. So many of them are going to pick one of these other methods other than check. And then also, again, you can build stronger relationships. You can make sure the suppliers you need to get paid first. You prioritize those, or other things that, you know, you might be able to show them that here's some facts about us. We pay on like this, or, you know, we're reliable for this reason. And so they're going to work with you better to help you continue to get the things that you need to make your product. Just a little bit about security. Avid's, you know, partly because we're a public company, but also we have money transmitter licenses in every state. We have, again, at this point, we're processing a lot of transactions. So security and infrastructure and all those things, it's really top notch. We've got, again, another team of people that are constantly looking at and monitoring from a security perspective. And we have some very sophisticated, you know, certainly enterprise grade of solutions for security. So again, just in terms of feeling safe. So let's just jump into what it is, you know, what's the scope of what AvidXchange offers. So if you look at the blue, that's all those blue little boxes. Those are where a person or persons are actually touching something. They're doing a manual process, whether it's they're receiving the invoice, and, you know, if it's the mail, or looking at it as an email, they then have to open it, then they got to get it to the person who's going to do that first approval, or if it's a PO, then it does something else. So somebody's manually doing all of that. And maybe there's some areas where it's a little bit automated, but for the most part, you're still managing that process yourself. With Avid, essentially you're down to 3 steps. If coding is needed, or if you just need to validate the coding, that's still an area that's in your control. The approvals are still in the customer's control, as well as when you're going to pay is also still in your control. But those are basically the 3 things you have to do. And just very quickly, I want to, because I feel like I'm taking too much time. So these are the sort of discrete steps. So from an invoice receipt, that's where Avid comes in. We pick up when the customer receives that invoice. And so when that invoice is received, it's going to get into our systems here, like an inbox type thing. Then it's going to get scanned, and the data is going to be extracted. Based on the data that's been extracted, you can then you write rules that say, okay, where should this invoice go the first time? If there's a PO on it, then we're going to go out to, the solution's going to go out to Acumatica, and it's going to get that PO information. It's going to bring in the lines, the PO lines, so that you can do the matching. And the other thing I wanted to point out is these aren't copies of files. Acumatica and the integration between Acumatica and the Titanium solution is they're going out in pretty much near real time to get that information to go and do whatever that function is. Then once it gets into the workflow, and again, you can have this be as automated as you want it to be. If everything, for example, if you have a PO and you have the receiving information and everything matches, and it doesn't even need approval for payment because you're going to pay that supplier no matter what because they're key, then you can have what might be called straight through processing. You can also have stops along the way, maybe based off of dollar value, or maybe if it doesn't match what that PO, where there isn't the match, if it's outside of tolerance, something else has to happen. So you get to pick what those workflows are and the number of steps in that workflow. And then once that's done and you're ready now to say, okay, I want to pay this, then that's where our Avid Pay solution and our network comes into play. If we already have that supplier in our network, we're going to find that supplier and we're going to just go ahead and pay them in the method that they said they wanted to get paid. If we don't have them in our network, then we're probably going to pay them by check the first time just to get it out there. But we have a team of people that do enrollment. They contact the suppliers and they ask them, these are the multiple ways that you could get paid. Which one do you want? And with virtual card and APD, those are the two that are the fastest. Obviously, virtual card being the fastest, and then APD second to that, and check being, of course, the slowest of all and the most, fraught with issues. So we're going to make that payment on behalf of our buyers in that method. And then we're also going to send remittance information for the virtual card and APD that can then be used, the supplier can use for the reconciliation. And once that payment is made, you can see the status of the payments and the invoices in the Titanium solution. And again, the integration with Acumatica is really, very modern, contemporary. It really takes advantage of what Acumatica offers from a integration perspective, their APIs. I'm going to skip this one because I think I'm running out of time, and I think that's it. So I know that was fast. What I wanted to do is really talk sort of a little bit at a high level of why we find this demand for not just Avids, but all this automation, why it is that we're a little bit different. And primarily we say it's our responsibility from the time that invoice is received to the time that thing is paid. We take all of that on, not just pieces of it, and not just the easy parts. That's my point.
Thank you, Elaine. And Matt is going to talk about integrated shipping with Acumatica.
All right. Well, thank you, Adrian. And thank you, everyone, again, for taking time to join today's webinar. We appreciate it. So really quick, just a little bit about V Technologies. I know Adrian in the beginning just mentioned some highlights, but again, we've been developing integrated shipping solutions since 1987. And at VTech, that is all we do, is integrated shipping software. Things like support, sales, development, QA is all done in-house. We're not outsourcing things like that. We do integrate with a dozen other ERP systems, but we've actually been working with Acumatica for 7 years now. And of course, we're going to jump into the live demo. But over the 35 years that we've been in business, we've actually had over 10,000 customers that have used Starship to help streamline their day-to-day shipping activities. So with that being said, let me X out of here and we'll jump onto my demo machine. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, so on my machine right now is the Starship program. So as you see, Starship actually does live outside of Acumatica, but the nice thing with that, as a shipper, I can really just work inside a Starship. I don't need to be inside Acumatica. I don't have to jump back and forth. Of course, for the demo, I do have Acumatica open up over here so we can show you the integration in the right back. And really with this, of course, after the call, if you want to call, reach out and schedule a deeper dive, and we can go into a discovery and again do a deeper dive. But I'm going to kind of go through this rather quickly. I say that, and I usually end up taking a while, but but feel free to reach out if there's anything you want to schedule, like a one-on-one call to discuss. Right. So again, with Starship, we're going to work just inside the Starship program. And even though I'm not inside Acumatica, this is still a live connection. So up top, we do have options. We can pull by sales order, shipments, or by customer. Honestly, most clients it is by the shipment record, but just know if you wanted to pull by the sales order record, on write back, Starship would also automatically create the shipment record inside of Acumatica. Now, if we're pulling by shipments and if we're manually building the shipping details, so the item box, selecting that box ID, or using a WMS, where we're using a handheld device to define that information. If we're doing anything like that, just know, however that information is predefined inside of Acumatica, so again, either manually on the shipment record or using a WMS, that's how it's going to flow into Starship. Right? Now, over here is our source field. So this is where we can type in this case, I'll do a shipment. We can type in that shipment number. If it's barcoded on your pick sheet, Starship does support wedge type plug and play barcode scanners. So a shipper could just simply scan in a barcode. Starship would automatically load that shipment information. And then down here, if we wanted to, we can manually look up shipment records. So and that's what I'm going to do. But just know we can apply filters. We could sort by any of these columns. even as a shipper, I can kind of customize this lookup. So when I log in, I can see just the fields that pertain to me, or maybe I want to filter applied. Right? Now, in this case with Starship, it is multi-carrier, multi-mode. So we can fully support, of course, domestic, international, LTL type shipments, blind drop shipments. I'll show you an example of that. So even like third-party bill recipient, we'll even talk about how we can automate that whole process. But really with Starship, kind of the name of the game here is to help streamline your shipping process. So the less things as a shipper I have to type, click, touch, of course, the better. Right? Now, with the live integration to Acumatica, for example, with these shipments, as we're adding new shipments inside of Acumatica, or if someone wants to go in and make a change, just know Starship's automatically going to be picking up those new shipments, or again, if someone makes a change. Now, also, if someone wants to make a change, because this is a live call and we're not tabling information, if we wanted to go in and say modify shipment 3576, some systems out there, it's actually going to be locked because it's waiting to be shipped. You know, they table it, it's sitting in the queue, so it's locked. But with Starship, if I wanted to, I could go directly into 3576, make a change, and again, Starship is automatically going to be picking up that change. Okay? But again, here for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to quickly select one of these shipments, and I'll just grab an international shipment so we can go through that, show you how we can help automate that whole process. And as far as the integration with Acumatica goes, really what we're doing is data mapping fields. So we can take any of the Starship fields, for example here, insurance. I have that mapped to the insurance checkbox inside Acumatica, so it's automatically selected. But that's how we really can set this up. So as a shipper, again, I don't have to stop and select options or type in information. Again, it is a simple data mapping, and we can look at standard Acumatica fields, the customer reference fields, or if you have attribute or user-defined fields set up, we could use those, again, just to help automatically select as much data as we can. So here's our source information. So of course, that's just going to tell us, hey, we're pulling by the shipment record, my company name, the sales order, and the shipment rec number. And with Starship, if you have multiple companies, branches, divisions, locations, we do fully support all that right out of the box. Next door, our sender information. That's of course just either your company information. Again, as I mentioned, we do support blind drop shipments where, hey, maybe I need to show like it's coming from Home Depot. So we do support that. In this case, I manually change the address ID, but again, this is a field we can simply map into an Acumatica field. Some clients just use that external reference field, and we can look at that and have Starship automatically select, for example, this address ID. Okay. Now, recipient, that's going to be our ship to information from the shipment record. Starship also does that address validation. We do validate ZIP+4. That whole process could be set up so Starship automatically does it. And if it does make a change, of course, it would update it here. And then if you like, we can even reverse translate that or pass it back into the shipment record inside Acumatica. Now, transportation, all we're going to do is take any of your ship via codes, and we're going to use those to tell Starship carrier, service, account. Now, if any customer or clients or anyone out there is doing third-party shipping, bill recipient type, we can even set this up where Starship automatically changes the billing type. We have a database where we can store the customer's account or address information here. And then if they have multiple carrier account numbers, that could be stored here. So again, this could be set up even for a third-party type shipment in this example. All this information is automatically selected. Now, again, a lot of clients, oh, you know what, we want that information to live in Acumatica. You know, that's kind of like the Bible. That's where we store all our info. So if it is living inside of Acumatica, again, we can simply data map it in. We don't have to get into custom programming. We just quickly go behind the scenes, tell Starship, hey, look at this Acumatica field. If there's data, bring it in to, for example, this billing account. Now, third-party type shipments, we also validate that billing account. So Starship is not going to allow a shipper to send out anything with an invalid third-party account number, because if that happens, of course, you actually end up paying for that shipment. These shipping details, as I mentioned, you know, here I just have insurance already flagged. It's coming in. I even have it set up where it's populating my base amount or declared values. So here as a shipper, I don't have to touch that. It's all going to do that on its own. These fields we can even default. So in this case, I'm always telling Starship, use the carrier email, bringing in some email addresses, or one in this case, from Acumatica. and even can set options where, okay, in this case, I just want Starship to tell the carrier to use their email if there's a delay or an exception. With Starship, we also include our own e-notify program, and that program does allow you to create your own custom templates. So you could have your company information, show the customer, here's what you've ordered, the ETA, item box detail if you'd like, and also on those emails, the tracking numbers will be hyperlinked. So the customer can click on that and they'll be directed to the carrier's the carrier's website. All right. Now, packaging, this is normally in a live environment where a shipper goes to first, because as I mentioned, all these fields up the top, we're going to really try to set it up so they're automatically selected. So packaging is where, in this scenario, I'm going to manually build this shipment inside Starship, but this is where we can get into that item box detail. Again, if we're doing this inside Acumatica, either manually or using a WMS, however you define information like package type, items in that package, even weights, dimensions, that can all flow from Acumatica. Okay? But in this case, this is just a packaging scenario that I have set up with this Acer laptop. So Starship's automatically packaged this for me. In the scenario where maybe I need an additional box, I can simply click this icon. We even have a repeat box function. So if you do have a large order, a shipper can quickly tell Starship, I need 2 of these boxes, for example, click OK. Starship automatically adds those additional boxes. And then after that, if we want to get into that item box detail, again, I'm manually building this one inside of Starship. It is simple drag and drop. So here, maybe I know the motherboard could also fit in that Acer package, but Starship's not going to yell at a shipper if they don't put an item in a box. In this case here, it's yelling at me because I need a weight. That's a given, but we don't have to have that item box detail. This drop down, just like Acumatica, we do have a database where you can set up your own boxes, bags, bales, pallets, cartons, whatever it might be. Again, just like Acumatica has. So you could, at time of shipment, manually select those. Nice thing with that is Starship will automatically populate the dimensions, or I could leave this as custom and just simply manually type in those dimensions. All right. Quantities, again, that's just going to be what we're shipping. So in my system, I'm just looking at what was ordered and what's available to ship. Now, if something was back ordered, of course, inside Acumatica, that's how it's going to come back ordered inside a Starship back ordered. I do have some clients that, hey, they have everything come in as 0, and then they allow their shipper to modify the unit and say, no, I'm shipping 1 of these, or whatever the case may be. So different workflows, and really up to you how we set up the system. Now, also here with actual weights, here again in my system, I have all the weights mapped in from Acumatica. So now Starship's automatically populating the weights for me. Of course, we integrate with scale, so this could be selected, throw the box on a scale, Starship would automatically bring in that weight. Or if I wanted to, I could manually type in or adjust the weight. Now, next door, bill weight. This is dimensional weight. So if anyone is unsure of what dimensional weight is, basically it's a big thing now. And what carriers are doing is actually charging you based on the size of the packages, not the scale weight. It's kind of more of like we're taking up real estate on the truck, not the weight. So Starship will always run the carrier's dimensional weight based on the carrier selected above here. And in this scenario, as you see, hey, I'm saying it's 5 pounds, but Starship's saying dimensionally 7. So if dimensional weight is taking over here, like in this case, Starship is always going to rate shop at the correct dimensional weight. And then as a shipper, when we process this shipment, it's also going to go to the carrier at the correct dimensional weight. That way, later on, you're not going to get that bill from the carrier where, hey, you know what, you sent that one box out at 5 pounds, dimensionally it was 7, here's the difference. And this also helps some of our clients use this where, maybe I said I put everything in a large box, and then I see the dimensional weight and it's, maybe 19 pounds, like in this case. Well, you know what, wait a minute, maybe I can fit this item or items into a smaller box that kind of gets me more closer to the actual scale weight. That way I'm not paying for all this extra, empty box space. So it's another way to use that nice dimensional calculation. Okay. So again, that's just the packaging. Usually after we do packaging, we're simply going to scroll down here. And this is where Starship's going to display our live contract rates that we have with carriers. So we do have integrations with over 24 carriers, and that is both small parcel, LTL. We even have some 3PL or broker services for LTL type shipments. We also have a bill of lading module. So if you're doing like LTL type shipments where maybe you're using a small or mom and pop carrier, or some of my customers, hey, we have our own trucks. Also, maybe we're doing bill recipient and our customer wants us to use ABC trucking. So we can actually manually add as many carriers inside of Starship if we need. And that way we could still use Starship to process using those carriers, have Starship generate things like bill lading forms, pallet labels, and of course, get that shipping information back into Acumatica. The only downside with the bill lading module, there's no electronic communication. So as you can see here with these carriers that we actually have integrations with, I'm pinging the carrier live real time, returning things like business days, total days, ETA. This is published list charges. Contract is going to be your live negotiated contract rate. So it's a live call. That way tomorrow, if one of these carriers up, say a fuel surcharge, when you rate shop tomorrow, you're going to gain access to those new rates. And then apply charge in Starship terms this is usually what we want to write back into Acumatica as what we want to charge the customer. And this could include plus or minus any freight rules. So with Starship, we can set up freight rules. So for example, here in this breakdown of all the different charges, I can actually see, oh yeah, I have one because it's a bartender, I'm giving them a 10% discount. And then this one, we can even go down to line item detail. So here I'm shipping a fragile item. You know what? Every time we ship this laptop, we always use additional packaging material. So let's add an additional $3 flat rate to help cover for that additional packaging material. So as you see there, those freight rules could be percentages, min maxes. They could also be calculations, plus minuses. So a lot of different options. And of course, we can use Acumatica or Starship fields to trigger that freight, or the freight rules, I should say. All right. And then real quickly, another thing that Starship has a database for is actually your inventory items. Now with Acumatica, they do a great job with having availability to put additional information. Some of the other ERP systems that we use, they do not. So inside of inside of Starship, we can have a database. And for example, we can start storing your inventory items. So if anyone's doing like LTL type shipments and you need NMFC codes, freight class, subcodes for that NMFC code, all that could be stored inside Starship. Also international information. So we could set up and store all the country manufacturer, Schedule B codes. We even have a lookup for that. So if this was missing, of course, Starship's going to alert me. I could quickly come in here, find that code, select it, and then for the next time, Starship would automatically remember that. All right, so again, just different ways by using Acumatica's database as well as Starship's database, we can, again, help streamline the whole shipping process. So, all right. But once we are ready to process a shipment, again, if we're going to manually rate shop, or we can even have Starship automatically set up rules, like do things like best way shipping. So, hey, you know what, Starship, automatically select the least expensive carrier service, or maybe the least amount of delivery days. That's things we can do as well. But in this scenario, I'm just going to do ship and process. We could also click up here on this drop down, save shipments, create return labels. But again, I'll just do ship and process. And right now in your environment, what Starship would be doing is, of course, just printing any of the documents that we have enabled. So, of course, shipping labels, packing lists, bill lading forms, pallet labels, so on and so forth. Especially if you're doing international, we can generate all the required international data or documents. Now, once we click ship and process, Starship is going to print out our documents, and I actually save some as a PDF so you can see them, but it's just going to print them out and takes the shipper right back to the main Starship screen. Okay, so they basically now select that next shipment, rinse, repeat, go through that whole process again. And then here, as I mentioned, here's just an example of some of the documents. So here's a shipping label that can go to a thermal printer, laser printer if you'd like, packing list, they could also go to thermal printers, laser printers, or maybe save it as a PDF. We can create custom documents. Again, if you're doing blind drop shipments, for example, this one, we could have a template set up that maybe Tractor Supply Company wants a special packing list with their logo, their information. I know Home Depot does it, and they actually have a whole return section. So we can create that and then simply assign printing rules that tell Starship when to generate that correct template, or in this case, packing slip. But bill lading forms, as you see, all the information is automatically going to populate. And then again, they could be customized so it's signed, dated, ready to go. So now as a shipper, I don't have to stop and fill out anything. But again, real quick, just some of the examples of the document, shipper's letter of instruction, certificate of origins, commercial invoices, and again, set it up, it's signed, dated, ready to go. Right? So back inside, let me jump it back inside of Acumatica here, and I'm just going to refresh the shipment screen. Now, as you see, 3587 is the one we just shipped, automatically has now been marked confirmed, and on the right back under shipping, again, this is where we could reverse translate shipping addresses, ship via codes. Maybe the shipper changed the ship via and selected like FedEx instead of UPS or USPS. That could be reverse translated. And then back down here, freight cost, freight price. So what you're going to be charged by the carrier, as well as what you want to charge the customer. With the freight price right back, we can even do right back rules, where there may be scenarios where you do not want Starship to override the freight price. Like maybe it came from a website. You already charged the customer on your website. So again, we can tell Starship, do not override that freight price. And then here, again, in my case, I built that shipment inside of Starship, but we still will reverse translate box IDs. Here's my tracking information. Down below is what I put in each of the boxes with the quantities. Okay, so again, live right back. Now here's an example. I'm using reference 1 and 2. I'm sending back dimensional weight and the ETA. So we can do things like that. Or we can even create a note, and it's up to you what writes back into these fields. So again, I'm doing this package tracking. Hey, what the scale weight, dim weight. Again, package 2, all that same information. You know, if you wanted to even track who shipped what, we could send back, you know, who's the shipper that processed the shipment. So a lot of flexibility with the write back functionality. Okay. Now, with Starship, other things real quick is our dashboard program, which is a reporting tool. So from here, this does not require any additional user seats or licenses. You know, of course, we can have anyone access this. So if they want to see overviews, history statuses, we even have heat maps, but you know, maybe I want to see what's been late or what's shipped or voided. Here's that heat map. You know, I can see where are my shipments going, or where aren't they going? You know, maybe why am I not shipping anything to Colorado? What's going on there? So a lot of functionality with the different reports. And speaking of reports, we do have a bunch of canned crystal reports. You can run things like address correction, as you see, of course, all our daily history. And also in this program is our e-notify program here, where, again, I'll just kind of show you some that I created. So for example, you know, our company information, I'm letting my customer know PO, sales order, you know, it's coming UPS, where it's going to. Hey, you're going to get 2 packages on the 29th. Here's what's in each box. You click it, you track it. Don't call us. You know, you have access to all the information. And then even with these templates, you could do things like promo codes. Maybe you want to have a template with this 20% off shipping promo code. They could be hyperlinked, kick them right back to your website. And then with these emails, instead of those printing rules, we can do emailing rules, or you can, where, okay, I only want this promo code to go to certain customers. Right? So a lot of flexibility with the dashboard program. And then with Starship, we also included with the program, and again, does not require any additional user seats or licenses. We add a Starship button inside a sales order entry. So we can actually give, and I'm just going to go to my other machine here and log in, give the power of rate shopping to the front office. So if they're doing a sales order or a quote, and maybe they want to rate shop, they can quickly come in here, and I'll just, that's an RM. Go back here, grab a different one. We'll just do a standard sales order. Come on. There we go. So like I said, we just add this button so they can fill out all the information and then quickly click this Starship button. It does ask them to log in one time, and of course you can just note, you know, hey, keep me signed in. But this is just going to be our rate quote module. So it looks just like the regular Starship program that a shipper would use. But of course, as you see here, I'm going to only be able to use this to rate shop. I can't do things like ship and process. But over here, all the same information. I can even see those packaging scenarios. Again, if I know how this is going to go out the door, I can add boxes, pallets, move items around, be able to see dimensional weight, and then down below, again, rate shop, see all my different carrier service options. And also from here, if we change carrier service, or maybe we do the address validation ahead of time, and that gets changed due to validation, once we click apply, of course, this is going to close. It's going to take us right back to the main sales order screen. But any changes with, again, the shipping address or the ship via, that will reverse translate. So we'll have that reverse translate. And then, of course, on the totals, we can write back that freight cost, freight price. Okay, and then here again is the addresses where we could update any changes. But really, that's kind of my song and dance. So I appreciate everyone taking the time. Of course, feel free to reach out again if you have any additional questions or want to schedule a deeper one-on-one call. And with that, I'll hand it back to Adrian.
Thank you so much, Matt and Elaine, for your presentations. I have the contact information up on the screen right now, and I'd just like you to take note of that and reach out if you're interested in learning more. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Thank you.